the top few layers off. And I jumped in there because, I had to take over. And as soon as I got in there, a couple shovelfuls down, and then I heard a big thud sound. So I moved the shovel, and I heard another big thud sound. Then I started wiping some dirt away, and I saw real bright colors of orange and blue and white, and started to uncover it some more, and I figured out that it was a porcelain sign. And someone had used it as like a privy cap, after they threw all the garbage in, they just kind of capped it off with a big porcelain sign. So it took forever to dig out. It took like an hour and a half to dig it all around it just to make sure we didn't break it or anything like that. And it was bent. It was like bowed in a U shape. So I was worried that, how are we going to flatten this thing out? What's going to happen? So once we finally got it out and popped it out, it bounced straight, and it was perfectly straight. And it ended up being a Firestone tire sign from like the 1920s.
Oh,
and
wow.
It's huge. It's like 4.5 feet long, massive porcelain sign. It was so cool.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that was very memorable, and it was in probably like a 1950s pit that a lot of diggers would have noticed that it was 1950s and just kind of filled it back in and not dug it out. But you got to dig it out. You can't see through the ground, so you have to dig it all.
You have to dig it, yeah.
Yeah, you never know what that bottom layer is.
Right,
exactly.
You never know.
And you never know, there could have been late throwaways, too.
Yeah, exactly. The late throws, whenever, maybe somebody's relative died and they had a bunch of stuff from their old house, and then, in the 1930s, they're trying to clean out Grandpa's room, and they throw out all of his bottles or something like that, and that's how the late throws get in there, and you just never know.
Right. You found any coins or jewelry in any of the privies, or?
Yeah,
or
I found a couple silver rings. My buddy Joe from Pittsburgh Coin Hunting, he went to the dump with us one time, and he was just kind of scratching around at the surface, and he was like, "Oh, cool, this is a pocket watch." And he started to brush it off, and look, it was really it almost looked like an aluminum color, but when he started to clean it out better, it said coin silver on the inside. And it was like 106 grams of coin silver.
Oh my gosh.
I've found my biggest silver pieces in privies and dumps.
Really?
Like more, yeah. Like silver spoons.
Like coins? Oh, really? Spoons?
Not so much coins. I found a couple, barber dime. I found a couple rosies. There was a guy that was digging with me. It was actually the same night that I found that first town hutch. And I was digging, and we were using headlamps. And he just looks at, likes to watch so that nothing collapses on me. He also looks for marbles and stuff like that. And it's just good to have somebody else with you just to be safe.
Oh, definitely. Yes.
And so he was like, "Yo, what was that?" And he reached his hand in right before it all had like a small collapse. And he pulled his hand out, and sure enough, he opened his hand, and there was a big silver $50 in there. So we got to brushing it off and looking at it, and it ended up being an 1899 Barber $50. And it even had someone's initials scratched into it.
Oh,
it was
wow.
So incredible. Yeah, it was amazing.
That is too cool. Wow.
Yeah.
And you cracked me up when you said about those silver spoons and forks and whatnot, silverware being in there, because, I'm trying to imagine, what are people bringing in their food into the toilet with them? Or
right.
They were like like we were mentioned earlier about them maybe dumping, other stuff and then dumping trash, and it accidentally got dumped in. Makes you wonder, did it fall in? Was it dumped in?
Right.
Lots of stories there, a lot of speculation.
I think a lot of it happens too. They were terrified of tuberculosis or early diseases and stuff. They didn't know how it spread or anything. So if someone would die, they would take all of their effects and throw them away, and just to get rid of it, just to hopefully it wouldn't spread. So I think that's a lot of the reason why we find some stuff that's like, why did they throw? Who would throw that away? They knew that.
I never thought about that.
Right.
That is amazing. Right. I had never thought about that. Had you,
Amanda? On occasion, yeah. I mean, I think it's passed my mind as a thought, but yeah.
Huh. That's fascinating. I find that very fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
So
we do have a couple
questions.
Yes, okay. We do. Figure we bring them in.
Right.
So Mike wants to know, what is the average depth and size of the privies you dig?
They range anywhere from typically they're from like 4 to 7 feet. But I've dug as deep as 12 feet. I've seen people dig as deep as 20, 30 feet. I haven't gotten into one of those giant abominations yet, but I plan on it someday. That is a lot. That's a whole operation, though. But one of these days, I want to get into a huge privy or a big cistern with thousands of bottles in it. I think that would be incredible.
Yeah, like an old saloon or store type thing. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And then we have, I think people answered the question. Brian wants to know, how do you split up the finds when you're digging with a group?
That's a good question. I think it's really important to kind of establish before, because it's we've seen it in the metal detecting world, and it infects the bottle world as well. It brings the weirdest things out of people, and it makes people do stupid things and say, and you know what I mean? It ruins friendships, unfortunately. That's the ugly side of it. So it's important to have something established, forthright before you dig, so that nobody's feelings get hurt or those things don't happen. So usually my digging buddy, we'll dig out a whole yard or, 5, 6, 10, maybe 10 privies and get a giant lot of them and then split them so that it's not like, if there's one good bottle in the privy and I get first pick, we flip a coin and I get first pick and I get the good bottle, and then it happens again and again and again. We like to have a big pool to kind of choose from. So we'll dig multiple privies and get, a big lot of bottles.
Okay. Interesting. That's a good question.
Let's see. The last question was from Heavy Metal Detectors. And do you have any advice on locating a privy on a permission? And I know, do you use the Sanborn maps?
Yeah, I've checked them out for sure. They're very useful for sure. The Sanborn maps, I think they're typically like 1900. Or 1920s. They had they marked where the privies were, any sheds or anything for, I think it was like fire insurance.
Yep.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, they're very useful for sure, but nothing's going to beat just kind of, sticking the probe down in the ground and seeing what you feel and what you hear. Those back property lines, that's typically where they're at, but you have to do your research too, because property lines have moved, fences have moved and stuff too. So it like I said, it is not easy. There's a lot that goes into it. Unfortunately, there's not an easy way to do it.
Yeah, everyone would probably do it if it was an easy thing to do.
Yeah, if it was easy, everyone would. Exactly.
Now you said
True, very true.
you said you seriously gone down like on some of these. Richie from Madison, Maine wants to know how deep do you dig a privy? Like how I know that most of the time you'll find the base, like depending on the type of privy it is, but what's the deepest you've ever dug?
Deepest I've gotten was probably about 12 feet, both at the dump and at the, like, into a privy. That's where privies, it's actually much more stable than people think. People think that whenever you go down 12 feet, they're like, it's just going to crumble in. Those walls are really solid. They've held up for hundreds of years. So they're actually, obviously we take the right precautions and watch and everything. And if things do need shored up or if it's not safe, we just won't dig it. But for the most part, if you're in a privy that deep, you should be okay. Now, dump digging, that's another thing. That's a little bit more dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the ash and everything, especially when you get into those really deep dumps, you really have to dig out a big radius so that if it does collapse in, you can get out of the way.
Yep.
That's it. You have to be careful. It is not for everyone, that's for sure.
Wow. Yeah, do you have like a white well or a wish list or one of those bucket list finds?
So the top of my bucket list right now, I want to find a Ponnold soda. I have yet to find even a piece of a Ponnold soda, 1850s era soda. That would be amazing. Or a historical flask, which were typically made in the 1830s to 1870s. And they come in all different shapes, varieties, colors. It's crazy how much stuff is out there, but I'd say those are two of the highest.
We supposedly have a lot of Stoddard up here.
Really?
Yeah.
Stoddard glass is gorgeous.
Gosh.
Typically, I collect Pittsburgh glass, and Pittsburgh was one of the biggest glass centrals in the 1850s and 1860s.
Wow.
We had hundreds of glass houses in Pittsburgh, so we're definitely lucky to have a lot of good glass makers. The potential here is much higher for a lot of good historical flasks, early glass here too. So we're definitely lucky in that aspect.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'll swap. You can come up. You can dig your ginger beers up here, and we can. Well, though I don't know if your towns would be up here, but we got plenty of those umbrella inks, Ponnold sodas. We got them up here, so
both of y'all.
yeah, we'll have to swap.
That sounds good to me.
Let's see. Can you tell our listeners where they can follow you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find my digging adventures as well as Tyler Yosko and my dad and my friend Joe and my friend the homeless man. We all have our digging videos on YouTube at the Copper Poppers. We also have a TikTok at the Copper Poppers and an Instagram at the Copper Poppers. Another thing that we also do is run monthly auctions for glass. It's called Drippy Lip Auctions. Have you guys seen any advertisements for that?
I have.
Not yet, or I don't think I have.
Yeah, so I've been taking kind of a hiatus because I've been very busy the last few months, but we run monthly auctions. Unfortunately, I can't keep all of the glass that I find. My wife would absolutely kill me. So I've gotten into doing these monthly auctions. We also do a lot of picking, garage sales, antique shops and stuff like that. I love going to that. So does my wife. So we do a like I said, monthly auctions on YouTube. They are live.